All right, everybody, welcome to another Fit Drivers podcast, sponsored by our good friends at 10th Street. Really excited about having this guest I have on today. He's a local homeboy from part of the country I'm from, Ohio. And his name's Bob too. So this is going to be the Bob and Bob podcast show today. Everybody, I'd like to introduce you to Bob Book, Vice President of Marketing for Road Dog Care Company. This episode, we're going to be talking with Bob Book, Vice President of Marketing for Road Dog Care Company. Bob advocates for simple ideas. When companies take better care of their drivers, the entire supply chain runs stronger. We know that more than anybody. Road Dog Care Company focuses on providing trucking companies with driver retention solutions. Bob, welcome to the show. Appreciate you coming on today.
Thanks so much for having me, Bob. I appreciate it. And you're right, man. It's nice to not have to remember another name. I'm just going to say Bob, and it's going to be the correct name today. So that's great.
That's right. Yeah, it's like even when you spell it backwards, right? It's still Bob.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's no fail.
So anyway, Bob, let's first start by talking and tell everybody, our listeners, about Road Dog Care Company.
Yeah, so Road Dog Care was launched a little over 3 years ago now, and the strategy behind Road Dog Care, the impetus behind it, was that we were seeing across the industry that it's becoming increasingly difficult for drivers to stay healthy and hygienic on the road. The hours that they're working, the miles that they have to make up. And then when you get into the economics of the truck stop, if you don't have a fuel card with a certain truck stop that allows you to take free showers there, we're looking at a $20 shower out of pocket to get these guys clean again. And so we really took that to heart and decided that we were going to come up with a line of products that would keep drivers hygienic on the road. Everything from full body bath wipes to rinse-free shampoo, where you can just foam it on and towel it off. It keeps drivers on the road. It keeps them smelling fresh. It keeps them feeling clean. And I think what we've done in the industry has been really, really well received because drivers love it. Their companies love it. And it really helps boost the image of drivers on the road.
Interesting. So speaking of that, leads into my next question. Tell me about, because our podcast, for the first year and a half, I think, when we did the podcast, sponsored by 10th Street, that was about, informing everybody on how critical the numbers are out there of drivers that are on short-term cards, right? And how many we lose. And so this whole last year has been talking about solutions and what we can do, and recognizing companies like what you're doing on how they can come up with some simple steps and things they can do to provide for their drivers. I just was on a call earlier talking with another company, and I know you feel the same way, Bob. We would be doing all of our new drivers a very, disengagement of if not learning from the past, right? Helping them health education, hygiene, all those kind of things, right? So tell me about this on your business model and how do you use this to go to companies and talk to them. I know you just came back from a trade show that offering what you do as a retention tool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, just to take a step back to what we love about what people like you are doing in the industry is that driver wellness it's an ecosystem. It's not one size fits all cookie cutter approach. There's a million different things that we could be doing to help improve the lives of drivers on the road. And fleets, there's a lot of fleets out there that are doing good work in terms of offering, chaplains and therapists and people to talk to for guys that are out on the road by themselves. Then you have people that are advocating for, more driver activity and exercise. And I think that's incredible too. So we want to come alongside those companies and those advocates in the industry with what we offer, because we do think that there is kind of a full holistic ecosystem that can be built out to take care of drivers on the road, everything from mental to physical well-being. Now, where we've come into that, our little part in this, we launched a couple years ago as a direct-to-consumer brand. So all the products we make in-house in North Carolina. We have manufacturing, warehousing, and fulfillment all under one roof just outside of Raleigh, North Carolina. And what we found pretty quickly was that drivers really liked adopting these products, but we kept hearing over and over, man, it would be incredible to not have to buy one more thing out of pocket. And that kind of gave us the impetus to start going to the carriers, to the fleets, to the employers, and saying, hey, I think that your drivers are asking for these products. And what they really want to see is if you guys are willing at this point to, frankly, put your money where your mouth is a little bit, because a lot of these fleets have programs to try to take care of their drivers, but a lot of times they're not super defined. And especially when it comes to retention, the one thing that I've noticed in this industry, Bob, is like recruiting is a well-built, well-oiled machine, but it's also kind of a leaky boat a little bit. The figures on driver turnover are still very, very high, and the cost to replace a driver are very, very high. And companies don't seem to have a defined strategy for how they want to retain their drivers. And to me, it all comes down to how are you treating the drivers outside of what you're required to give them? So outside of a paycheck and outside of just a bonus here and there, what are the things that you're providing to them that make them want to stay at your company? And that really is what it all comes down to. So for us, we've started going to carriers. We've started going even beyond that to, the next concentric circle out that might eventually touch drivers. So things like CDL schools, insurance companies, healthcare providers, with the end goal of getting these products in the hands of drivers. And so, our pitch to these companies is this could be an extremely low cost retention strategy where we have drivers voicing to us they want to receive these products on a monthly or quarterly basis. The cost to give a kit full of these products to your drivers is negligible compared to what it would cost to replace that driver if he or she walks out the door. And it's a huge morale boost because they see that their company now wants to take care of them, wants to provide the tools to them to make sure that money stays in their pocket and they don't have to buy it out of pocket. And that we truly do care about how you feel, how you look, how you behave on the road.
Right. Well, yeah, and you're trying to create that image, right, for the drivers. So tell me, I'd like to hear from you since you're fresh at out doing this, and I've been doing it for a while. Tell me about the response you're getting, from the carriers, what they're saying. They're receptive, and we know that a lot of them say, yeah, we love this and we care about our drivers. But then at the end of the day, somebody's got to write a check, right? So just without getting all details, but just generally, I think you just came back from TCA. Is that where you're at?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I assume you had a booth there talking to folks, and
no booth this year. I was just kind of walking the exhibit floor, which was nice because I got to talk to everybody there from carriers to TMS platforms, the whole shebang. So that was really nice.
Well, I can tell you from personal experience, again, thanks to you and your team being a sponsor when I was at Women in Trucking, and just sent a wonderful box of all these different products. And I sent you some of the posts. I mean, they were tickled to death. And the other big, which I really applaud you on focusing in on, because I talk about this all the time. People don't realize that how many drivers have pets with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the whole idea, the concept of having pep wipes, right? When they get out and get back in, they wipe their paws off, or walking on those greasy concrete when they're in the truck stops and so forth, was really a huge, I think, game changer for a lot of these people. They loved it because I use that as a way of talking to drivers about, exercise, in form of exercise, right? Get out, walk your dog, and also about taking care of themselves. And I'm sure since you've got the pet supplies, that typically, unfortunately, people do take better care of their pets than they will themselves, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah. So
yeah, but anyway, I mean, to your point, like, even if you can afford, or you have a fuel card that allows you to get a truck stop shower and get yourself clean, the figure's approaching almost 50%. I think it's like 47% or something was the last I saw about CDL drivers that are over the road drivers, I should say, that have a pet in the cab with them.
You're right on.
So,
you're right on. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and so there's really nowhere, I know some of the really big truck stops like Iowa 80 has a great pet care kind of facility there. I think they have a veterinarian on site. They have a pet wash. But I mean, unless you're driving past that, you really have no options. So you can get yourself clean. But these guys want to take care of their pets. And that's their companionship on the road. That's, in a lot of cases, what's kind of keeping them calm and level-headed. And I think those pets deserve to be just as clean as the drivers do.
Absolutely. So tell me, my question was, I got digressed there, but What's the feedback you're getting from when you talk?
So I'll tell you two things, Bob. The first is that the companies that we've worked with to this point that have demoed the products and put them in the hands of the drivers, the feedback has been absolutely phenomenal. Like, you know, we did a ton with driver appreciation efforts last year. We shipped thousands and thousands of kits out, and they were, you know, a lot of companies just wanted them like palletized, and then people would come in for their driver appreciation celebration and they handed out these kits. And so, I mean, that was an incredible, really quick win way to get in the hands of drivers. You know, the issue is that we started this company right as this kind of freight downturn really took hold. And so the biggest obstacle for us has been making sure that fleets understand this is not an added expense. It's not a new line item. You know, whatever your efforts have been over these past 3, 4, 5 years, I guarantee that that money is in your budget to implement this program, whether it's because we're going to be saving you money on the back end from not having to recruit new drivers, or we could take a look at your marketing budget. You know, a lot of these fleets, they give t-shirts, they give hoodies, they give backpacks, they give coats, they give little tchotchkes to all their drivers that may or may not actually end up getting used. And so there's a lot of bleed in those marketing departments as well, that when we kind of sit down in a room with these fleets and we all put our thinking caps on and we think about this touches recruiting, this touches marketing, this touches your PR, this touches retention. That money is already there existing in your budget. It will cost you absolutely nothing in the long run to implement this, and it will lead to an incredible cost savings. And so, you know, I say all that to say that's the biggest obstacle to get over, is that in this economy, in this environment, we've seen companies be really hesitant to try to implement a new cost until they get in a room with us and they see this is not actually a new cost and it's going to lead to savings for us in the long run.
Right. Well, you and I both know those numbers, and that's why I talk to them all the time about as well in post, and where I get my biggest response from is that why not take care of the skilled driver you know today before you hire the next unknown driver of tomorrow, right? And, you know, spend a fraction of what it costs, 5,000, 6,000, whatever it is, to put somebody in the seat, and spend, you know, $20, $50 for me anyway, $100 to coach a driver up to help them understand where they're at nutritionally and physically, and get them prepared so they can pass that next DOT, right, and keep their license. And you're the same way. I mean, you know, instead of giving them a t-shirt, I mean, I'm sure they'd much rather have hygiene products. I remember when you talk about the wipes, I think it's very valuable, especially I know back in my previous life when I was operating clinics, I would get a lot of calls from drivers, especially in the summertime, right? Flatbedders, you know, out in the heat working and working up a sweat, and they get in the truck and they're driving down the road and they're bouncing up and down, some of them, and they get a small little infection in their back, and it turns into a boil where they didn't have a way to get sanitized, right? So this is a great alternative where people can stay fresh, basically, right? Take care of themselves hygienically. And I think, you know, most of the companies that want to project that image is important, and that's what you're trying to do. So I think that's great.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think, you know, when you look at the math behind it, there was just a figure put out last week by Platform Science, I think, that their newest figure in terms of the average cost to replace a driver is $12,799. So, I mean, if you round that up to an even 13 grand, and what I propose is let's get your drivers on a quarterly shipment from us, your existing drivers, your good drivers. We'll call it $200 a year. 4 $50 boxes, you're talking about saving potentially 65 drivers for the cost of replacing one. I just, you know, when you actually sit down and do the math on it, it's not a lot to keep your good drivers and to make them feel seen and to make them feel special. And I think that fleets are finally starting to wake up to that fact now, because they've had to get creative with the ways that they reward and retain their drivers in the environment that we're in.
Exactly. And it is important. And I know some of the things I get back from the companies is, well, there's such a turnover. I do this for them. They're gonna leave anyway. Well, then that's more of an other issue you got going on. Something's not being managed right.
Exactly.
Whatever. Right. Cause I know I did a trial with a company pretty well recognized company, and they gave me 20 drivers that were on short-term cards. I saved 12 of them and got them back to a long-term card. And so we regrouped and met and said, well, we'd like to roll out some more. Want to give me another 50, 100, whatever. Well, I'm not sure I want to spend the money to do this. And I said, why? I said, well, because I get them healthy, get their card, they leave and they go somewhere else. And I've helped them get their 2-year card or 1-year card. And I said, well, then that would, I would think, give you cause to examine other parts of your company, right? What's going on? Why is that the case? You're helping this driver keep their livelihood, right? So
absolutely.
That's a whole other subject, but I know I get a little frustrated when you go to these and they talk about they're having these conferences talking about recruiting and retention. It's really about recruiting.
Exactly. No, 100%.
Right.
And it's funny. I don't want to rail against the recruiting industry because I have a lot of friends that are recruiters and they do good work, and they're doing a lot in that side of the industry now, especially with AI, to try to really optimize the recruiting process.
Sure.
But what I've seen in the industry in just my short time being in this industry, I was comparing it last week to somebody. It's kind of like having a boat with a hole in the bottom of it. And this AI move that we have now to optimize it is like, it's not actually taking care of the leaky hole in the bottom of the boat. It's proposing, what if we made this boat out of lighter materials? And I think that it's like, at the end of the day, you've still sprung a leak in the boat, and companies are bleeding money with their recruiting process. And yes, they're trying to optimize it, but if it's a fundamentally inefficient process, then I think we have to start looking elsewhere. And that's why, Road Dog is focused so hard on the retention side of things, because the ROI and the actual cost involved in retaining good drivers, I mean, it's at least, 10 to 1 in terms of what is being spent on recruiting than retention. And I think that companies, like I said, are finally starting to understand it costs us a lot less to keep our good drivers if we just treat them right.
Yeah, and not just good drivers, but skilled drivers. And a study I'm working on, it's going to take a while, but because I got to have the interaction with the companies, but companies that have drivers that we know what the numbers are, they're very daunting. Almost 60% now operate on short-term cards. I'd like to learn about, and I've done it without doing a real professional study, but I know from generically talking to several carriers and doing it internally, those drivers that are on short-term cards and they've been with that company for 3, 4, sometimes 10 years have really good driving records, and they're skilled. And comparatively to hiring someone that you get in the first 30 days, we know what that looks like, right? So I'm working on doing a study that shows that, gosh, you got Bob One here, and he's been with you for 4 years, no incidents at all. And he knows how to manage his truck. He knows your customer. He knows the lane he works in, but he just doesn't have any education to manage his health. Now you want to go hire Bob number 2, who you know nothing about, and you're going to have to go through the train cycle, and he made that, and statistically shows that first 30 days is when the biggest percentage of them fall out, right? I mean, that's when they leave and you burn that money. So it's very
and I think that, I was at the recruiting and retention conference up in, I guess down in Nashville last week as well. And there was a figure shared there. I want to say it was north of 80% now that they can prove that over 80% of drivers at any given time have a recruiter in their inbox, basically trying to poach them to go to another company. And I think that when people get serious about the fact that that's just a fact of our industry now, that your skilled drivers are going to be sought after, then the differentiator becomes what's going on internally in our culture that will keep them here. Because assuming we can compete on salary, or even assuming we can't, there has to be something else that makes that driver want to stay here. And in an economy like this, I think companies are really starting to get serious about the idea of, we need to drill down on our culture. We need to drill down on the ways that we're incentivizing and rewarding our best skilled drivers to stay here, because it's just a fact of the industry that if they're good at what they do, other companies are going to want to recruit them.
Well, I've lived that personally as well. One of the best jobs I had before the pandemic happened is companies would, every month I'd go to a different carrier. They'd have me come in And during recruitment day, when they're bringing them in, driver trained, they'd have me speak to the crowd about prevention, right? How to take care of yourselves on the road, getting started. So I would, my part of my thing is that they'd all be circulating out into the hallways, getting ready to come in, and I'd go out there to rustle everybody. And I can't tell you how many of them were on the phone talking to a recruiter from another company, and they're telling them, "Listen, Bob, I'm getting ready to walk in here and take this job. If you got a better offer, you better give it to me now." Right? And it's amazing, and that 80% does not surprise me at all. And a number of drivers would actually say, I'm out. And they'd have a car out there waiting for them, pick them up and take them over to the next trucking company. I mean, that's how bad they poach it. And that's what they really do. And it is true. And so I learned that way as well, is that I just feel like if I could show more concern from the carrier that they were showing to their drivers, that they really do care about them. And I've gone to some that they're waiting outside to go in through orientation, and it's raining outside, and they won't open up the door early to let them in. They just let them stand out there. It's like, really? I mean, what's that about? I mean, why would you not let these? Well, we don't want. They can't come in here because they'll just take over. Well, then that's your fault for not having control over the situation. But let those poor souls stand out there in the rain. It's pathetic. Anyway.
Well, and that's, we say the same thing about what we do and what you do, that this is not a magic bullet. If there's something fundamentally wrong with the culture at your company, then just adding a program like this is not going to fix that. And I think that's what you've been talking about, Bob. But I'm optimistic, and I'm heartened by the fact that I've seen, especially just this last year and especially just at TCA last week, that companies are really starting to get serious about this. And I think, the market has kind of dictated that they have to get creative with their strategies now, but it's caused a lot of companies to take a look inside and to say, what are we doing well with our drivers? And how are we, we extract a lot from the over the road driver. And, the statistics and the figures that are out there about life expectancy of truckers now, they're scary and they're harrowing. And I think companies are starting to realize, we ask a lot of these people, what can we be doing, not just to maintain their productivity, but to actually help them, to help them feel like they are becoming a better person and able to better themselves physically and mentally on the road. So I am encouraged by that. We do a lot of complaining about the industry, but I am seeing that sort of like internal turn and self-evaluation in a way that I didn't a couple of years ago now.
That's great. That's great. Well, we just, like I said, what you do, what I do, or some of these other, we're not competitors. We're all fighting for the same thing, right? And the more that we can make it well known and help out, then there's a way of making it. My goal is at some point, I'm hoping in the near future, and you're welcome to jump on and be part of this, obviously, is that I want to have a conference, and could be part of a conference that's already existing. So people don't have to create, like you said, another budget line to send people to, but we need to have within a conference a whole day session about these kind of things that we're doing and what can be done and what you can do, and put that in like a driver health event, right? Where they can come in and meet people like what you do, what I do, what others do out there, and understand that there are choices. And as I say all the time, I don't know what the right program is for your company, but I do know the wrong one, and that's do nothing at all. Right.
Absolutely.
So you got to do something. Yeah. So there's one thing I want to dive into before we wrap up, is that I want you to tell me in the audience about your new relationship with Live Life Healthy. Is that right? LLH?
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah. So LLH Healthcare is a new player in the logistics sector. So they are a supplemental benefits healthcare provider that they work with companies to come alongside their primary insurance to offer another suite of benefits. And so that includes everything from telehealth to zero copay pharmacy benefits. And their big selling point is that when they break down the math, when you get into the payroll tax savings of signing up your employees, it actually creates savings for both the employer and the employee. And so it all essentially cancels out and becomes a zero cost added healthcare benefit. I've seen their suite of products. It's pretty incredible, especially the zero. I don't know about about you, Bob, but I have some kind of chronic health issues. I'm a type 1 diabetic. And so to see that my prescriptions would be covered with zero copay on their program, and it wouldn't cost me anything out of pocket, and it wouldn't cost my employer anything out of pocket, was pretty incredible to see. Now, we were able to kind of come alongside them because as they have expanded into the logistics sector, they realized, hey, our suite of products essentially exists either digitally with telehealth or just in an intangible way. Like you can tell somebody zero copay, but until they've got that prescription in their hands, it doesn't feel tangible to them. And so they said, we've seen your products. It definitely complements what we do. And so they wanted to bring us on as sort of their tangible benefits partner so that every company that signs up their employees with the LLH program will also get 4 shipments of Road Dog per year to every single employee completely free. So we're obviously taking this to every one of our contacts in the industry because I believe in the insurance program that they're offering. I also, as a Road Dog employee, am like, hey, if you want to try our program, here's a way to do it completely free for you. And it's a way that continues to support the health and well-being of your drivers. So for us, it really was a match made in heaven. We couldn't be more excited to talk about it and to partner with them.
That's great. So I know there's, I was approached by another company that's doing this. I mean, this is a program that's been out there. And really, I think the secret of it is there's a tax break through the IRS, right? That people don't realize they can do. And like I said, all these things can be paid for. So that's great. I'm glad you found a way that you could utilize that initiative to, help get your products out there, but help make it more aware. And that there are a lot of programs. I say all the time, like you and I talked about earlier, what we do for wellness and so forth, they're really self-funded. And they said, what do you mean? I said, well, if you can save a driver, you have the money to pay for it. It's just going out the back door. So why not put something in their hands? And I think that's great. Absolutely. So last question, are you going to be at Matt's?
Oh, I'll be at Matt's. I'm doing a little bit of guerrilla marketing this year. So I've got, like any good salesperson, I've got my list of targets. I've been putting together personalized Road Dog kits for each of these companies to go and hand them a completed kit to say, this is what it would look like to get this box in your driver's hands. So you'll see me there pulling a wagon around, talking to different companies at Matt's for sure.
Right on. Yeah. Well, I was hoping that I'm still working on the final details, but that's great. We should talk about that. And we should also talk about, how some opportunities we could collaborate and work together as well. And I certainly appreciate your help last year at Women in Trucking. That was very kind of your organization to be a sponsor. And like I said, we got your products out there, and we also raised some money for Waypoint Vets, and they did some good work and continue on like as your mission is. It's just not about, physically, but it's physically, mentally, hygienically, all those things are very important. So it's great. So I'm a fan. So,
well, we appreciate it, Bob. Thank you so much for having me on today. It's been a pleasure. It's always great to catch up with you, man.
You bet. So I'll reach out to you here, and maybe we can have a sidebar conversation outside this next few days or next week sometime and catch up.
Let's do it, man. Thanks
again.
Everybody.
Thanks again to everybody for listening in. I'll be posting this up as soon as our good friends get it edited up. And thanks again to 10th Street for really stepping up and being part of this. So thanks again, Bob. Talk to you soon, buddy.
Take care.
Adios.